Are your guitars sounding muddy and narrow, kind of like this? Do you want to make them sound more clear and wide, like this? Well, you're going to want to stick around for this video because I have a lot of tips that I'm going to give you to help solve the problems that I see a lot of people having when it comes to mixing their guitars and making them sound wide and clear. What's going on, guys? It's Jacob Brewitt. Welcome back to my channel, and today I wanted to dive a little deeper into mixing modern metal guitars, and I want to give you some of my tips to help you create wider and more clear sounding guitars in your metal mixes. Also, the music that you're going to be listening to today is a song of mine that I've been working on called Hell Follows Me. It's going to be available soon on every major streaming platform, so definitely check that out if you're interested in the sound. Really appreciate that. How about we dive on into the video, and for this first step, I'm going to show you how to add more width to your guitars. One of the biggest things that creates width in a stereo mix is contrast. So one of the ways we can achieve this is by using different amps and cabinets to achieve different tones, so that when you pan them left and right, you're getting different tones on each ear. So in your mind, you're hearing two completely different sounds. Instead of using the same amp, the same cab, and the same microphone on both sides, then you're just hearing the same tone on both sides. It's kind of redundant. So here I have both of my guitar track amp sims pulled up, which is the Archetype Nolly. Of course, this is an amazing plugin. I definitely recommend it to anybody who's looking to get a really nice amp sim plugin loaded with features. But anyways, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to switch one of these plugins for a different plugin. So completely different cabinet, completely different amp, and we're going to see the kind of difference that we can get. So first, let's listen to the rhythm guitars by themselves. As you can tell, it's really not a terrible sound, but I tried to dial in something that doesn't really work well in a mix. So we're going to take one of these plugins, we're going to trade it for something different. Mesa Boogie Mark II C Plus Suite. Let's do that one. I know that we're going to have to do some tweaking on this. Already, you can hear that there's quite a difference. You know, the contrast of the two amps and cab sims really helping to bring out the width. Yeah, so we're going to do some more tweaking on this and see what we can get here in a bit. One of the more obvious things when it comes to creating width in your stereo mix and your guitars is actually hard panning left and right. This is a very common thing that mixers and producers do when it comes to heavy metal guitars. One of the most dangerous things to do is to center pan your guitars or include a center pan rhythm track. Sometimes it's done, but it really depends on the scenario. And when you're going for wide and clear guitar sounds, having a center pan guitar track is almost always gonna lead you down a path of failure. And sometimes people even have this inclination to pan their guitars in just slightly. And I think the reasoning behind this may be that they want to fill up the soundscape with their guitars a little more. It doesn't really work that way. You know, you have your bass guitar in the middle, which already, you know, most likely has a lot of distortion going on, and there's no real reason to partially pan in your guitars when you already have that chunky bass in the middle. You want your guitar spread out 100% each side. As you can see here, I have these set to like 40 on either side. Yeah, if you could hear when I panned those guitars out, it just immediately widened it out. As you can see, it's a bad idea if you're trying to get wide guitars to pan things in a little bit, or especially have a center pan guitar track, because that's just going to make everything way too muddy, way too confusing. It's going to make it a lot more narrow than you'd like. Another thing you can do is actually record with two different guitars, or if you don't have the choice to do that, you can also select a different pickup on your guitar. That'll yield you a completely different tone as well. Some people might be scared to do this because they think that recording with the blend of their bridge and neck pickup is going to make things not sound metal enough. In a mix, you can actually get some really nice tones that way. Give it a shot. So now that we've covered some of the things that can help make your guitars sound wider, let's move on to a few things that'll help your guitars cut through the mix and sound clearer and more crisp. One of the biggest things that I see, especially guitarists who produce their own music, is they like to crank the gain, just get this gnarly tone that sounds great for practicing, but then when you put it in a mix, it's just completely muddy and has no definition. Less gain is more. The least amount of gain that you can get away with, the better, because that is going to make everything sound much clearer. So let's take a listen to what I have now. It's just kind of absurd, way too much gain. Right, so it sounds cool, sounds pretty monstrous, but let's listen to it in a mix. There's way too much noise going on, way too much harshness that shouldn't be there, and too much muddiness. We're going to try to make it as clean as possible. The least amount of gain that we can get away with, the better. You're picking up all of those nuances of the playing and the pick attack and the sliding of the strings and all that stuff that makes it sound a little more raw, which actually can add to the aggression and the overall just mood of the music. Definitely be careful with how much gain you're using and try to experiment with using pretty low gain. Next thing that's going to help add clarity to your guitars is EQ and compression. So let's go ahead and dive into the computer and I'll show you my settings and why I have them set up that way. So when I'm doing my rhythm guitars, I generally route all of my rhythm guitars to a bus. I'd have 2 tracks. That's it, just 2 rhythm guitar tracks. So the first thing we have here is a compressor. Pick somewhere around 250 to 200 hertz and below. Fast attack, longer release, nice ratio here. What we're trying to do here is duck the palm mutes or any boomy bass that you're gonna get. Now we're gonna move on to an EQ. Let's go ahead and bypass it right now. Let's listen to the guitars. So you can hear there's quite a bit of difference. Essentially what I'm doing here, right, so I have a high pass, again, like a lot of those sub frequencies, cut them out. As well as some high stuff here. It just gets too fizzy. It's gonna mess with the cymbals and the vocals, and the sub stuff is gonna mess with like the kick drum and the bass guitar and all that stuff. So around 446, between the 400 to 500, do a little bit of a dip there, kind of a broader band. And that's gonna be a lot of your like woofiness, boxiness. You're definitely gonna have to experiment with your guitars. Just check around that area if there's anything that's messing with your tone. A sharper cut around 2.5K. There's a whistle going on there, so that's super annoying. You'll find a lot of those like resonant frequencies, the whistles, but you got to really pick and choose. You don't want to cut out everything because you're just going to end up ruining your tone. Just experiment though between like 2,000 and 3,000 hertz. More of a narrow Q. We have 5.2, about 5.3 almost. Yeah, generally there's one. You'll find it anywhere from like 4 to 6K. Find the one that when you cut it makes things sound better, not worse. This is the frequency that I happen to find that when I cut it sounded a lot better. My last tip for adding clarity for your guitars is to use automation and editing. So a lot of people use automation just for volume. You can bring up the guitars in certain parts where there's not vocals, but another thing you can do is actually automate the EQ of your guitars. So if there's a part that you want a little bit more of your pick attack, you can automate your EQ to bring up some of those high mid to lower high frequencies. And editing is the big one, probably the most time consuming thing. Make sure that your guitars are very tight. Here I've taken a band from my Neutron EQ that we used before. If we open up Neutron, this is band 8. This is the band that I chose. What essentially it is, a broad boost of this upper mid, upper high end. So right now I just have it set about 0. So let's go ahead and listen and you'll be able to see this band pop up. Could definitely hear it in the mix too. So if you're trying to help your guitars to cut through a little bit, there's a section that you want to hear a little bit of, the pick attack and those nuances of the guitar and the playing. Try this technique. And the last thing here is we're going to talk about editing. It's the necessary evil. The way that I do it in Logic is by the flex tool here. It allows you to stretch. Hopefully, you don't need to move that much because your guitar player is great. But if you do need to adjust some parts, if we look here, you have, obviously, there's like a big spike right here. But before that, there is like a smaller spike. That is going to be your pick attack. So you want the pick attack to hit on the beat. So now that we've made all of our changes, let's have a little listen to what this clip sounds like. So that's about it for the tips that I have for you guys today. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that subscribe button because I think it's something like 98% of people that watch my videos are not subscribed. So, do me a favor, do yourself a favor, hit that subscribe button, and stay tuned for future videos. I got plenty on the way. So I'll see you in the next one. Peace.